Hello and welcome to WriterSpeak, a program dedicated to the written word and those who produce it. Today in the studio, I would like to introduce John McCarty. Welcome, John.
Well, thank you for having me, Jeannie. Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. I have thoroughly enjoyed your books. It'll be fun for me to talk about them.
Well, thank you very much.
Let's talk about your first book, Memories That Linger. That's really a sign in Rianito, isn't it?
Yes, on the cover, we left the sign as the title of the book. It's actually a steel wire mesh that says Rianito, Memories That Linger. It kind of guarded the entrance, a sign that you dipped under and drove into the Seven Dwarfs motif type of village.
I just found this book to be a great escape and very hysterical. I really have to mention the funniest part and ask you about it. I read about the devil shorts. Now, did you make this up? And tell us what this is.
Well, those who read this will gather that I have a Catholic upbringing and background, and I did make up the devil's shorts. The devil's shorts in the book are penitent shorts that Sean McGinnis, our protagonist, has to wear for doing something very evil during his 8th grade catechism class. But for all those Catholics out there, you know that the nuns had many, many tools at their device at which to torture you with. It wasn't just guilt. But the devil's shorts was entirely fictitious.
I'm really surprised because it was so out of the ordinary. I thought it must be true.
Well, I'm hoping the Archdiocese of San Francisco doesn't get a hold of this and comes up with any new ideas. But
well, we must tell people that these are shorts that are frozen.
Yes, they are.
So tell us that little bit of the story. It's really funny.
The story starts out in Our Lady of Angels Grammar School, actually along the peninsula of San Francisco, Burlingame. And Sean McGinnis and his two buddies, Bobby and Aaron, are about to graduate and are full of ideas as to how to explore their adulthood. They are tired of, well, I call her Sister Mary Crunchbath. In the book, she's called Sister Mary Grace. They are tired of her totalitarian ways, and they are very successful in putting aside the 1953 edition of Playboy magazine. And the first fold-out centerfold for that edition was Marilyn Monroe. So Sister Mary Grace one day is lowering the blackout shades, and she's stepping from one blackout shade to the next, always keeping a watchful eye over her rascals. And she slips down one blind shade, and there are 20 of Marilyn Monroe's staring at everybody. And then the next blackout shade, and she doesn't look up, and she hears all the ahs and oohs. They finally figure out who did this. I may point out that that part of the book actually occurred in real life.
Oh.
And some people were called to the carpet, and in the book, Sean McGinnis is one of them, and his buddies, and they have to wear these penitent frozen shorts on the outside of their corduroy pants. So it's their scarlet letter for the day. Not only is it uncomfortable, and hopefully freezes the temptations out of their loins, but it is a sign of evil and of sinners.
And you really made that part up.
I really made that part up.
See, I just thought it was so amazing that it was true.
But the episode with the Playboy magazines on the blackout shades is true.
Yeah, so I have a feeling a lot of your stories, most of them, maybe I'm guessing, are true, and you have just embellished them. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I taught history for 30 years, and so the research part is there, and I enjoy the research part. So I'd like to take pop culture, antiquities of local communities, cannibalize them, twist them around, and throw them into somewhat of a plot that's believable. But that's where I start.
Do you draw your characters from your teaching experience at Mission High School in San Francisco?
I have not yet. I have several plots that I'm going to write about. And I had several dealings with the street gangs of San Francisco in an official capacity. And there are stories yet to come. And we may bring in a U.S. Marshal from the outskirts of Russian River. We never want to leave that completely alone. And if you're familiar with the TV series Justified, it may have some likeness to that. But for right now, most of my characters have come from the Russian River.
You mean real people walking around?
Yes, and they don't care if I name names, so if you want a list, I'm more than happy to furnish them.
I read in your book that you were able to gather a lot of stories from different people in the community, one person being Claire, who is the owner of Johnson's Beach.
Claire Harris is the, let's say, 90-year-old on-staff manager of Johnson's Beach, and quite a character, and his family
Yes.
at one time owned most of Rio Neto Village and did all the contracts for the big bands and so forth and so on. So he was a wealth of knowledge, and I'm very grateful to Claire for sharing his family legacy.
Yeah, I have met him. He has an incredible memory. Which character did you find the hardest to create in Memories That Linger?
That's a good question. I think the protagonist, Sean McGinnis, because I didn't want him to be so straight-laced that he appeared blah. There's a lot of peripheral characters that have a lot of zest to them. And so I had to make sure that Sean, mostly through his actions, stepped to the fore. I think that was the most difficult, to make sure that the protagonist found his own conclusions, that somebody did not come in on the periphery to rescue him.
And which character did you enjoy writing about the most?
I think the character in the Memories That Linger that I enjoyed writing the most about would have been Bobby O'Hearn, Sean's buddy and classmate. And he's still a friend of mine. And he alone, he goes by a different name today, is responsible for that Playboy incident that we talked about earlier. And he's quite a character, and he's never left his childhood behind. He's brought it with him wherever he's gone. And I still enjoy talking with him and experiencing the past.
I really enjoyed your colorful vocabulary. That's what really kept me reading the book. And it makes it quite hilarious, really.
Well, thank you.
Let's hear a little paragraph from Memories That Linger that show us that wonderful writing style that you have.
Okay, I'm going to put my cheaters on here. And we find that our protagonist, 14-year-old Sean McGinnis, has failed to bring back his father to life. He feels personally responsible. Obviously, a crisis of this proportion has devastated him. He has left his cabin in Rio Neto and gone downriver to escape heartache. His buddies, Bobby O'Hearn and Aaron, who are also there for the summer, chase after him. They catch up with them, but it's several days until they can convince him that he should come back to his family. In the meantime, a 9-foot prehistoric creature, government black coats, and a mysterious island waylay them. They find themselves lost deep in the woods of the Bohemian Grove near Monterey. Suddenly, broken chatter caught their attention. The voices were coming from a clearing just ahead. Crawling on all fours, The boys arrived undetected and within sight of several men milling around a large campfire. Slithering like diamondbacks, the boys maneuvered ever closer to a bowl-shaped meadow. Raising his goblet to the heavens above, a burly voice delivered a toast. My fellow brothers, we have been blessed with faithful comradeship, a full glass and shared laughter. It's Robin Hood and his merry faggots, Bob snickered. Quiet, you moron, Sean insisted. As if rehearsed 1,000 times, some 50 hooded men wearing flowing burgundy satin robes created a corridor. A singular figure hiding behind a gargoyle mask carried an infant-sized bundle towards the well-fueled bonfire. Behind the circle was a 40-foot-high statue of an owl. A staff banged on a flat stone, the ceremony beginning. May the smoke from these flames carry the last vestiges of our worldly cares to the distant corners of the universe. Weaving spiders, come not here. Lifting the bundle above his head, the high priest continued. We willingly give this untainted offering in return for your deliverance from the darkness of the material world. After a brief moment of reflection, the bundle wrapped in swaddling clothes was placed inside a crib and hoisted atop the massive bonfire. With a last show of comradeship, all in attendance threw their goblets onto the flames, bowing their heads. In silent respect, the hooded congregation genuflected. The trio released a collective gasp, the image too horrific to comprehend. A tall figure in the outer ring turned sharply in their direction. Afraid of detection, Aaron backed up, but the ground collapsed under his weight. He tumbled forward, coming to rest in the open meadow below. The entire fellowship ceased their worship. The high priest made his way through the throng and stared at the intruder. Raising his arm, he pointed to the trespasser. Who dared defile these sacred grounds? Step forth and identify yourself. Several followers walked deliberately towards the frightened youth. Oh no, they're going to burn me at the stake, the shaken Aaron thought. Suddenly, an explosion erupted behind the ceremonial altar. The ball of fire created a diversion while Sean and Bob ran down the slope and whisked their buddies to safety. Seeing the backsides of 3 trespassers quickly disappearing in the woods, a black coat shouted orders to his fellow comrades. You two, secure the area and protect the senator. The rest of you follow me. Tripping and stumbling, the youths ran helter-skelter down the forest trail. The black coats were steadily gaining on him. It would only be a matter of time.
The Bohemian Grove. Have you studied the Bohemian Grove and all the goings-on in that colorful place in Monterey?
Well, they're a powerful group of men, so I'm going to say no.
Whoa. And I guess you'll say no as if I asked you, was that true?
There are several websites, and there are several of my friends who have witnessed the ceremony. And
but you haven't.
And I personally would not. That would be trespassing. Did we get that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
No trespass.
But there is a 40-foot pagan owl on the premises. It lies behind an altar, which sits behind a pond. And actually, these men in robes canoe across with an offering. And in the old days, the voice of the pagan owl was Walter Cronkite, who was a member of the Bohemian Grove. There have been some wild assertions as far as what the bundle represented or what the bundle actually was. And I can remember in September, some local crazy guy from Texas came up armed to the tilt, trying to save what he believed was an actual child. And there was a face-off with the sheriff's department, but all ended well.
Yes, I've heard a few of the rumors that go quite rampant along the Russian River during the Bohemian days and times. So I hope everybody got a good taste of memories that linger. Now we're going to be talking about John's second book, In the Rough. And those of us who are familiar with the Russian River, I know the pink elephant is no longer there, but those of us who have been around long enough have seen the pink elephant. I personally have never been in the pink elephant, but I sure remember seeing that really funny sign, the pink elephant. And these days we do judge a book by its cover. And I think you have a great cover there. Can you tell us about how, is this a photograph, and how was this designed?
Well, first of all, let me back up and just say that it is quite a denizen of iniquity, and for those that we all have covers that we're trying, or reputations we're trying to protect. So I would have said the same thing, Jeannie, that I had never stepped foot in the pink elephant before.
Well, I really haven't.
But this cover was taken at the time when the sign was there. And the building itself, the tavern, had just closed down. And as we speak, the new owner, who happens to be the present owner of the Blue Heron restaurant in Duncan's Mills, is in negotiations, or I should say a battle with the county.
Oh.
And I don't think we would have it any other way. You know, we love our battles, and we have one on our hands.
Especially in small towns. But you had somebody design this cover, I guess, is that
Yes, a very
right?
good friend of mine, Ron Friedland.
Yeah, he did a wonderful job.
Thanks, Ron.
What year was the pink elephant sign removed?
Not more than 2 years ago.
Oh.
2.5.
I thought it was even longer than that. Well, you have a lot of colorful characters in this book also. A defrocked priest, a masseuse. Tell us about a few of the interesting characters that you have put in this book in the rough.
Well, it may be hard to believe as one reads this, but all these characters are based on factual people or parts of factual people. For the most part, I threw in a couple of personalities to create one person. So I did come across an individual who had been thrown out of the Catholic Church in his crusade to do away with celibacy. And there's a little bit of history behind that. There's an archbishop down in Mexico City, Archbishop Moreno, who is still carrying on this crusade. But a priest was not looked upon too highly when he married other priests. And so for that reason, that's where I got one of the characters, was from a person that I know that still lives along the banks of the lower Russian River. Eddie Peters is a conglomeration of an old Vietnam War buddy that made a contemporary and turned him into an Iraqi war veteran. And I threw in a personality of a friend who was a former male stripper for the traveling Lords of Burlesque. So that created one character. The masseuse is a combination of characters. She becomes a political masseuse. And there were, and there still are, ladies of the night, especially during July when the Bohemians are here.
Well, it is quite a town, Monterey-Rio, I know. And it's fortunate that you were able to find so many colorful characters that added nicely for this book. I was curious about the political battle over the bond measurement of the treatment plant. How true was that story?
I did quite a bit of research in that, and attended meetings and did quite a bit of reading, and I was afraid to take that on head first. It is a fairly bland topic, so we weave it in there. We do have a town meeting here, but in 2008, a bond measure was passed by the good citizens of Monterey-Rio to construct a treatment plant on what is now the Sheridan Ranch. And over the ensuing years, with the battles for eminent domain and so forth, and the cost of production increasing, it was dropped. But the state does intend to clean up the river and probably will approach it from another angle. That is, that people on an individual basis will be responsible for cleaning up their septics and so forth and so on.
It really seemed like you did quite a bit of research about, and water is always such a hot topic along the Russian River.
Right, and the river has a beautiful history of being a resort area for many, many reasons. And not only is it transforming into a #1 region in the United States for bicycling, but I believe it's #4 in the country as far as a wine destination. But in the old days, it was #1 in the United States as a fishing destination, which you don't hear much about anymore. But that is touched upon in the book as well. But progress means different things to different people. And many of the people in Monterey like things just the way they are. And they would definitely be afraid that progress would not come knocking on their door, that they would be left out of the jobs that would become available, and that they may have to move elsewhere where rents are lower, have not increased.
Our audience would be very curious to know about the novel I know that you're working on right now.
I'm working on a novel that's entitled 1,000 Slippers. I'm doing a rewrite for Hooligan Press up in Portland. And it tries to capture the fear that existed along the West Coast and especially in San Francisco after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And many believe that it was just a certainty that the Japanese would continue from Pearl Harbor onto the West Coast. And so you have to remember during these days, radar was untried and not relied upon. It brings together 3 true life characters. My mother was an accomplished ballerina and the youngest member of the San Francisco Ballet and Opera Company at age 15. And her instructor from Japantown, a Mariuccio Ito, was later arrested as a Japanese spy. Her father, my grandfather, belonged to a very questionable organization, one that still exists today, called the California Greys. This quote-unquote vigilante group had a very checkered past, and they are asked to help with the guarding of the Golden Gate Bridge along with the National Guard. But there are many, many rumors circulating to this day about their unauthorized visits upon Japantown and raids before the Japanese were sent to internment camps. So those two somehow, well, not somehow, it's very calculated, meet up with Nobuo Akita, who in history was a pilot that flew off the deck of the I-25 submarine of the Japanese Imperial Navy. And he, in real life, is accredited with the first aerial bombardment of North America. So these 3 characters, as I was alluding to, meet up at a burlesque theater in the Tenderloin of San Francisco, run by Sally Rand, who was Little Miss Egypt and the founder of the fan dance, at her music hall. And for historians, the music hall today is the Great American Music Hall. So we weave those 3 characters into a kind of an offbeat take on a different view of the beginning of World War II.
So is this fiction, historical fiction, or nonfiction?
It, through 3/4 of the novel, is considered historical fiction. I mean, it's true enough to the point. And then the author, whom I know well,
yes,
he takes his own course of action. And we had a lot of fun with it.
Oh.
But I would think for historians even, this would be of tremendous interest.
Very much so. Looking forward to it. How long do you think you have till it will be published?
I'm in the last week of the rewrite, and we hope to have it on the shelves in a couple of months.
Oh, well, that's very timely. Then we're very happy to hear about it. Tell us the title one more time.
1,000 Slippers.
1,000 Slippers. Well, thank you so much for coming to WriterSpeak, John. It was a pleasure having you.
Well, thank you very much, Jeannie. I had a lot of fun.
I would like to thank the audience for watching WriterSpeak, put on in Santa Rosa at the Community Media Center. And I would like to also thank our sponsor, the Sonoma County Gazette. Please stay tuned next time for further episodes of Chats with Local Authors.